Hello everybody, thank you for coming along to our little presentation. I think we've got a mix of people here who have maybe seen their system before and some who have never seen it at all. So I'm going to approach this as if you don't know anything about the system, you're looking to find out how it works and you want to see all the basics, all the little features that it can do. So that's what we're going to do. A couple of things to point out beforehand. So I can't hear you obviously, but you can hear me. And if you have a question or you want to ask me something, there's somewhere on your screen there should be a little chat window where you can type in a message. So please do use that. I do want to try and stick to 30 minutes. If I don't get to your message, I will email you, but we'll make sure we leave a bit of time at the end to sort of respond to any messages we can. So do just fire in any messages. I'll maybe answer them straight away, or we'll maybe come back to them at the end. Or I'll maybe have to email you and catch up later on after this. I also think we've got people from around the country. So there's a couple of people from Scotland here you can see, and some from England as well. We're going to do a mixture of the Scottish curriculum and the EYFS, just so that everyone can understand how the system works. And I'm now just going to share my screen with you. So if you bear with me, you'll be able to see this. So hopefully now you can see my my screen. What you're looking at is Learning Journal's website. So you've probably had a look at this already and you've been through it, I would hope. If not, it's just learningjournals.co.uk. Here, what we have is the website of Arbor Green Nursery. And this is the nursery that Learning Journals began at. So at our nursery here, a couple of years ago, we realized that online profiling and taking observations of the children was taking a very long time. It was very time consuming and it was very cumbersome for the staff to do and also expensive in terms of time and materials as well for us. So we looked around for a solution, couldn't find one, decided to make our own. And that's what we did, and we used that ourselves, and then we got an inspection by Education Scotland and the Gain Inspectorate, our equivalent of Ofsted, and they suggested we should maybe expand that to other nurseries. So that's what we've done. So it's still obviously used in our own nursery, and we now are in several hundred nurseries throughout the country. On this other tab, I've got the actual system itself. So those of you who are on a trial, you'll be familiar with that. The way the system works here, we set it up tailored to your nursery. So we've got a typical private nursery set up here with a baby room, a toddler room and a preschool room, but this is completely customizable. There's no limit to the number of rooms that you have or the number of, or the pictures or the titles or anything like that. That's all completely up to you. The rooms are really just a way to organize the child's profile so that you know where they are and you can easily locate them. So if I click on our preschool room here, this will show me all the children in our preschool room. So I'm in a demonstration account here. I've only got 6 or 7 children. There's no limit to the number of child accounts that you can have. There's no limit to the number of observations that you take. So please bear that in mind. You can have as many observations as you're able to fit in, or you can do 1 observation a week, whatever your time allows. From the screen here, I can jump to a different room if I want to. So I could go and have a look at our baby room now here if I wanted to. I could focus on a particular staff member's children here as well. So if I want to look at a child's profile, I can either click on their face or click on this observations button here. And this will open up their folder. So these represent a kind of A4 ring binder that you've probably got at the moment in your nursery. And if you imagine we've just opened that up now, we're now looking at Amy's observations. So Amy is on the Curriculum for Excellence. So that's the Scottish version of the curriculum. But the system works exactly the same way. So up the top here, we've got the different curricular areas. If this was the EYFS, then we would have the likes of, PSED, the world, all that, all that sort of things that would be up here. And these are just our different curricular areas. Everything else looks exactly the same. So if I focus on this particular observation, we've got the date the observation was taken, the curriculum this particular child's following, the curricular areas that this particular observation applies to, the description here. This part was actually written by the staff member, and that's the only part that you really need to think about and add in. The system will then tell us who created this observation. So in this case, it was Demo Staff 1, and who last updated it, and it was last updated by Learning Channel. So any member of staff can take an observation on any child. So for example, if one of your key workers is off, it doesn't mean her children are not going to have observations taken for them, because they can be accessed by other staff members and her colleagues as well. We've got a section on the right hand side here for evidence of what you're doing in the observation. And in this one, we've got some photos. You can have up to 4 photos per observation. And we can also, you also have the option, if you want to, you can upload videos as well. So photos are great when tied with a great description like this one. But a video is fantastic because it will really let you, or let the parents actually, see what their children are doing, listen to what they're saying, see how they're interacting with their peers, and how they manage in the activities and things that are happening at nursery. There's a section below for next steps as well. So next steps can be added into any observation, and we've got a next steps tracker as well. I might not get a chance to have a look at that this morning, but if anyone does want to know more about it, they can let me know. And there's a comments box as well. So comments can be, you can use these however you want to. Parents are able to leave comments too, which is one of the probably the biggest benefits of the entire system. Parents can leave comments, but if you want to, staff can go back to observations and they can leave further comments as well. Hopefully that makes sense to everybody, but I think the best thing to do now is to actually show you how you take an observation. So the system looks exactly the same on a tablet or iPad or whatever it would be as it does here. So this would look exactly the same, and we recommend it's used with an iPad or some similar device, because that way you can take the observation in the room, you can take a picture with the device as you're going along, and it's just so much quicker. So what we would do is, if we see Amy doing something we want to observe, we click on Add Observation. And all you have to do now is really just follow the steps. And we've tried to make this as simple and easy as possible. It's very, very staff friendly. It's grandparent friendly as well, I promise you that. First thing we do is choose learning outcome type. Now this child's following the curriculum for excellence, so it's the curriculum for excellence curricular areas. And if this was EYFS, again, that would be one of the 17 or 18 different areas that you have that would be detailed in here. But I'll go and do an observation for an EYFS child in a second to show you that. Then you describe the observation. Now, it's important to point out here that the quality of your observation wholly depends on the input and the content that you and your team put into them. So you need to make sure when you're doing your description that it's evaluative, descriptive, and it really gives a true picture of what the learning is that you're observing here. You will probably have conversations with your own teams about what a good observation looks like. Learning journals is a tool that lets you take these good observations, but you do have to think about the content that you put in. Now, having said all that, I'm going to put a very basic observation here that Amy was learning to count to 10. So you would never have something as basic as that in this description here. There's no limit to the amount of words or text or content that you can put into these boxes here, just as much as you need to get your message across. There's a section below for next steps. So next steps are so for example, Amy was learning to count to 10, but let's imagine that she was struggling with the number 6 and 7 and getting them around the wrong way or missing them out. A next step that we might put in here would be for Amy to consistently learn to count to 10 without missing any numbers out, without getting them around the wrong way. So if you want to, you can add a next step in here, and you can choose to track it as well. So we have a next steps tracker, which can be reviewed at any time by staff members, and they can see what next steps each child is working towards. But not every observation will need a next step, and not every next step will need to be tracked. So this section here is actually optional. Here we have the date of the activity. So this is today's date, but if it was something that had occurred previously, so last week, and you hadn't had time to write it up yet, say it happened on Monday and we hadn't had a chance to write it up until Thursday, you can go back and backdate the observation as well if you want to. And that works with the time as well. So here we've got this morning's time, and we can change that if we need to. The next section is where you upload a photo. So this is where a device or or tablet or iPad comes in really handy. So instead of having to get the digital camera, take the picture, take it to the office, print it out, cut the photograph out, stick it into the book if you can find the glue, all that sort of stuff. You simply just click on the upload photo button here, and if you've got an iPad, it will ask if you want to take a new photograph or use an existing photograph. If you take a new photograph, it will activate the camera and you can take the picture right there and then. I'm on a computer here, so it's just searching through the computer's memory. So I'm just going to upload a couple of pictures that I happen to have. I'm going to upload this one of a turtle. And then, I should maybe have shown you that. So I'll do that again, and I'll upload another photo here. So we choose whichever. I'll upload a panda now. You can see here that this particular account can upload photographs and videos as well. Videos will obviously take a bit longer to upload. You can see how quick a photograph uploads, but the speed does depend on your internal network. So the network in your nursery or your school or wherever you happen to be. At this stage, if we want to, we can crop the photograph, we can rotate it or flip it, and just upload that one as well. Adding in up to 4 photos is a really great way to document a process. So we could start off, our first image could have been a blank sheet of paper, the child with a blank sheet of paper. The next one, they could be making some marks or doing some work, and by the end of it, we'd actually see the work they've created. So that is a really good way of documenting a process. So we've got our description, we'd have next steps we wanted them, and we've got our photographic evidence. So we move on to the next stage, and this is where we connect it to the curriculum. So what's going to be really handy for you guys is that all the curricular information is in the system already. Now, that includes EYFS, includes several versions of the Curriculum for Excellence throughout Scotland, and a couple of other little curricula that we have in here as well. So they're all available to you, and a child can be set to any one. So what we have here are the different experiences and outcomes for the Curriculum for Excellence for the numeracy and math section of that. If this is EYFS, then you would have the different age groups. So you'd have 0 to 9 months, or 0 to 8 months, 9 to, all the different age bands that we have here. And what you're asked to do now is simply choose which experience or outcome applies to the observation that you have just observed. And you do that with these green buttons down the right-hand side here. So if I just click one, it adds them in. And you can have as many of these as you want. I'm just doing some random ones here. They're not actually applying to what we're doing. You'll see also that we have some numbers down the right-hand side. So we've got 2, 2, 2, 0, 1. So what these tell us is that this child has had 2 observations already linked to this particular outcome. 2 to that one, 2 to that one, but they've never had any evidence that we've experienced this part of the curriculum here. So right away, at a glance, you can see which parts of the curriculum the child has had coverage in, and which they maybe need to focus on, or which, in this case, we've had 4 observations here. For this particular one here, is there any observations that have, or any experiences and outcomes that have been documented too many times? Are you wasting time on these ones? We can also go across curricular areas, because quite often an observation will span multiple areas. So we're in numeracy and maths, but it could also be technologies as well. So if I click on the technologies button, it brings up all the technologies, experiences and outcomes, and we just, again, click in whichever ones we want to. Now, all the experience and outcomes that you choose will appear up the top of the page. So here's the 3 that I've chosen for this particular observation: 2 in numeracy and maths and 1 in technologies. Before we can move on, we're asked to rate the child's understanding of what they've just done. By default, it's a red, amber, green traffic light system, but in your settings, you can actually change this. It could be developing, consolidating, secured. It could be emerging, expecting, exceeding, whatever you want it to be. It's completely up to you. Very important to stress that parents do not get to see the assessment that you make. So when a parent logs in, they'll see the experiences and outcomes you've applied to an observation, but they won't be able to see the rating that you've attributed to their child for that. So there's a reason we've kept that internal. It's because, well, you know yourself that a child would be expected to be read, for example, when they first join a nursery, because they're just getting to grips with the concept. They don't understand it yet, and it's their first time. And they might be read for several months, or they might progress quite quickly. It might be difficult for a parent to accept that red is actually where they're supposed to be. Red obviously flags up, something is wrong in a lot of people's minds. So that's kept internal. You can choose to share it with the parents if you want to. You just make your selections with these wee buttons here. And once you've done that, you can move on to the next stage. So for this child who's following the curriculum for excellence, the next stage is what we call the I can statements. If this child was following EYFS, this would then show you the characteristics of effective learning. But again, it works exactly the same way. So we've got a whole set of I can statements here available for this child, and we choose them and select which ones we want with these green buttons. Again, we can go across curricular areas. And as I say, if this was in a child on the EYFS, these would be the characteristics of effective learning split into their 3 categories with their experiences below that. And again, you can make an assessment based on this if you want to. And then you move on to the last stage. So the last stage is about connecting to previous observations. So if you think back to our first stage, we had the opportunity to add in a next step, and we could have tracked that next step as well. Any next step that has been tracked will appear on subsequent observations in this column. So here we have 2 observations which had a tracked next step. So the next step in this case was to use the scissors independently and cut something out. And the next step here is to participate in letter recognition activities. So these were observations that were taken, these next steps were added in, and the staff member chose to track them. What the system is asking is, does the observation we've just completed, that Amy was learning to count to 10, does that achieve any of the next steps that are outstanding for this child? Now in this case it doesn't, but if it did, we could connect the 2 observations together with this add button. And what that would do, in a next steps tracker, it would show us when the next step was identified, when it was achieved, and what the child did to achieve that next step. You don't have to make a selection for next steps, so this is completely optional. Hopefully that's clear. Again, if anyone has any questions on that, just fire in a wee message to the chat. Finally, you choose whether you want to publish the observation, save it for later, or delete it. So if you choose to publish this observation, bear in mind that a parent would be able to see this if they happen to log in. So don't publish anything that you're not quite ready for a parent to see. You can save it for later. And what that does is it will save the observation but not make it visible on the child's profile, so the parent can't see it, and the staff member can then go back, and if they want to, they can add in more content, they can add in more information or photographs or whatever it is they want to do. They can do that there. I'm going to set this one to publish. And finally, and I know this is going to be very, very helpful to a lot of you, publish this observation for other children, this little option down here. This is where you do group activities. So, for example, in our nursery, what happened was we had the police came down to give us a wee talk. They came down in their sort of big van that had all the equipment and stuff in it. The children all got to have a look in the van and all the equipment and things. So a lot of children were involved in one observation. And what would have been really frustrating would have been had to create an observation for each individual child, copy that out, fill it all in, all that sort of stuff. So what we do, if we check this box, we click on finish. We're then shown all the children in this particular room, or we can look at all rooms or any other room. And then we're asked who was involved in this observation. And I'm going to choose Anya, Stuart, Alistair, and Marcus. They were all involved in this particular activity. And what this will do is we'll copy everything over to their profiles as well. Now, you do have to be very careful with this. Whatever is in this box up here will be copied to these other children. So here we have Amy was learning to count to 10. That obviously wouldn't be appropriate to have in Anya's, Stuart's, Alistair's, and Marcus's profiles. So there's a couple of ways around that for you. What you can do is you can just make a generic observation up here, exclude any names if you want to. But there is an opportunity to use this little short code down here. And all you have to do is read the instructions, which are replace the child's name in the box above with the code first name. So what I'll do, I'll take Amy here and I will remove that and I will write in first name in these brackets, square brackets. What happens when we do that is that when it's copied over, it will replace this code with the first name of each child. So in Anya's folder, it would then say Anya was learning to count to 10, Stuart was learning to count to 10, Alistair was learning to count to 10, etc. So click on the begin button here, that copies them all over. And once that's done, after a second, we can then go back into this child's profile and see the observation that we just completed. So there we go. Here's the observation that we've just done for Amy there. See, it was taken this morning. This child's on the curriculum for excellence. These are critical areas. There's our description. We can actually add in something now as well if we want to, but she missed out the number 7. Very handy also is that this has got inbuilt spell checker if you're using a modern browser, so you'll be able to see that. Quite handy for a lot of people. We've got our photographs down here, which is nice, and we've also got a tab here to see the different experiences and outcomes that have been applied, and there they are there. Now, I've taken about 15 minutes probably to go through that creation of an observation process in depth. I promise you, once you've done this 2 or 3 times, you will be doing this in 2 or 3 minutes. And that's 2 or 3 minutes for group observations too. So you may, and that could be taking an observation for 20 children, for example, in a few minutes. It's a fantastic way to just gather evidence for the children in a very, very quick way. So a couple of other things I want to go through quickly as well before we have to finish, because I do want to make sure we get to some of the questions that people might have. I'm going to click on the Home tab up here. Now, when you look at the Home tab, this is the screen that you see when you first log in, and it's just a very basic summary of the recent observations that have been taken in the nursery. So you can see that here's the observation we just took for Amy, and we copied it over to Mark, Alistair, Stuart, and Anya. We could go and edit these or view these if we want to, or delete these observations as well. We can focus in on a particular child's profile. So if I want to look at all the observations that have been taken for Anya this month, I can do that here. Or I can look at particular staff members as well. So if I want to see, for example, what did Angela do this month in October so far, we can see she's actually not taken any observations. So it's a handy little management tool as well for you to be able to keep up to date with the observations that have been taken for children. And linked to that is next to this is the notifications tab. And what happens here is a child will appear on this list if they've not had an observation in over 7 days. Now, 7 days isn't a very long time, but what it does is it just flags up those children to management and to staff that for whatever reason have not had an observation, because there are children who are quieter, they could have been off ill, they could just be in different sessions or whatever it might be. But this will help to avoid the situation where you have a child who goes for a long, long period of time without having an observation. And it could be like Tina here, that she's on holiday. She's been on holiday for quite a while now. Or it could be there's something more that you need to look into. Next to notifications, we've got parent comments. And I probably should have brought it up before, but I consider the parent engagement side of learning journals to be probably the biggest benefit to the system. In our nursery alone, we get hundreds of comments every month from parents. We would have been lucky to get 5 or 10 comments, because you know as well as I do that parents are busy people. They want to pick up their children, they just want to drop them off. It's very difficult to get them to come into the nursery, engage with their profiles. We're actually using this in primary schools in Scotland as well now. One primary school in Edinburgh is in a very, very challenging area, should I say, of Edinburgh, and it's very difficult for the staff there to get parents to engage. They're using it from children in their nursery all the way up to sort of 10 or 11 years of age when they leave primary school in primary 7. Last year, they had 2,000 parent comments throughout their on their learning journals account, and again, they would have been lucky to get 5 or 10 in that time. So the parent engagement is a huge part of it. Parents can only see their own child's profile, obviously. They can't change anything that you've done. They can't delete anything. They can't make any edits to any of the observations you've done, but they do get to see what their children have been up to. I'm going to quickly jump back into a child that's following EYFS for those of you who are interested in that. So I'm going to choose Abby this time, and I'll quickly go through the same process. So you can see here the difference in the curricular areas. You've got a lot more up here split into the particular things, but everything else is exactly the same. Everything looks exactly the same. You still get your tab to see your different experiences and outcomes, and you still have photographs, next steps, parent comments, all that sort of thing. So take an observation, click on Add Observation. Again, choose your curricular area, and I'm going to, while I'm here, I'm actually just going to stick with the same thing that's in my head. So Abby was learning to count to 10. Again, if you want to check the next step, you can. Date and time's automatic. Upload a photo, really easy. Pick the one that you want, or take a new photograph. Well, we'll go, oh, a badger. We'll have a badger. Crop the photo if you want to, and submit it. Okay, move on to the next stage. So this is where it will vary a little bit with the EYFS, because instead of having the curriculum for excellence experience and outcomes, we've got all the different learning outcomes from the EYFS. And you can see how here we are in maths and numbers split down into the different age groups. You'll see that here. And again, you just choose whichever one applies to you. I'm just going to pick one there, and I'll go into this other one over here, and we can pick another one. Then we choose our assessment and move on to the next stage. And so the next stage here is the characteristics for effective learning, even though this does say progression pathways. So these are the 3 characteristics for effective learning categories, and we've got the ones below that. You don't actually have to make a selection at this stage if you don't want to. You can actually skip this. Moving on to the final stage, this is obviously the same. So this is where we can choose to connect up to a previous next step if we want to. We can choose to publish the observation, save it for later, or delete it. And if we wanted to, we could publish the observation for other children as well. But in this case, for Abby, I'm just going to finish this one. This is going to publish her observation straight to her profile. And there we go. So I think I probably did that one in under a minute. So you can see how quickly it is possible to take observations. A couple of things before we have to go, I know we're getting close to time now. Please do send through any questions that you have. So I'll stick with, actually I'll go back to Amy because she's got more content in hers. What I want to talk about is tracking and reporting. So you'll notice obviously we've done that red, amber, green assessment for each child. Now where that feeds back into is this child's learning tracker. So if we click on the learning tracker, this brings up a report for this child. Now, again, this report varies a little bit depending on which part of the country you're in. So here's a child up here who is on the curriculum for excellence. At its most basic, this will give you an idea of the coverage that this child has received for observations. So we can see that of health and well-being, you know, we've got a significant portion yet that we don't have evidence that this child has experienced. Same with numeracy and maths, expressive arts. And what this will help you do as a client is be able to see where there are any gaps in this child's learning, where you need to maybe concentrate your activities or your planning. So very visual, nice, easy way to see what's happening there. You can go into each curricular area in more depth and more detail by clicking on these assessment buttons. So if I click into the assessment button here, this will then bring up all the experience and outcomes for this particular child. And I can now see what the child's been doing in this particular curricular area. So I can see that the ones here with a view button, these are the ones that we've had experiences in or observations in. But obviously, to be realistic, you're never going to have an observation for every child in each curricular area. It might be that you know that for this particular one here, we know that Amy is secure, or she has fully grasped the concept of this particular outcome. However, we've not got evidence of it, but through our time with the child, we just know that this is the case. And if we want to, we can make a manual assessment using this drop down over here. So we can say that she's green in that one. We can say that she's amber in this one if we want to. So we can go through that if we want to for each child. There is a cohort tracking screen, which I can't show you today. But if you want to look at a whole class of children, you can do that. You can look at reports over certain periods of time, so you can see which children are, currently rated as red in particular parts of the curriculum and all that sort of thing. So there's quite a lot of reporting that can be done with this. A lot of you won't be interested in that. A lot of you are really purely wanting this to be able to take observations of the children. And then you've got the bonus features of having things like monitoring which children have had observations and which children, and parent comments and all that sort of thing. Those are the very basics of the system. There's a lot more to it. I could probably talk for another hour and a half. But those are the very basics. And if you are not already on a trial, you to go to learningjournals.co.uk, click on this free trial link up the top here. That will take you to a page where you fill in this form and you can try the system out yourself completely free for 30 days. You do need to have internet access. We are working on an offline app that will help those of you who struggle with internet access. But at the moment, you do need internet access to be able to use it. I would suggest you have some sort of tablet or device or something like that. I hope you found this useful. You can get in touch with me at any time. Click on the contact link up the top here. Send me a message if you have any questions. and I can get back to you about that. So here we go. Send your messages or anything like that you have in the future in here. I'd encourage you to sign up for that trial. I think you'll find it really useful, and you can maybe join one of the hundreds of other nurseries throughout the country that are using the system currently. Thanks very much for coming along. I'll be emailing a recording or a link to a recording of this session to everybody that's attended. And if you would like to, so that will come to you automatically, but you can obviously get in touch with me if you have any further questions. Thanks very much, everybody. Hope to hear from you soon.